They thought leaving a brown-skinned girl broken on the floor of a school hallway would silence her forever. But what they didn't know was that her mother wasn't built for silence. She was built for war. In a town where power was a weapon and money bought truth this time, the lies wouldn't survive the fire. And when she rose, every person who stood in her way, teacher, principal, or politician, would tremble. Stay with me till the end, because what this mother did next, no one in Crestfield ever forgot. The morning bell screamed through the narrow corridors of Westbridge High, bouncing off walls lined with bright posters about school spirit and zero tolerance. Lena Harris tightened her grip on her backpack as she made her way through the flood of students. She had only been here for 12 days. 12 long, uneasy days where every whisper felt like it carried her name. Her dark skin and quiet eyes stood out in a place where sameness was worshipped like religion. And today she could feel something in the air, that heavy electric tension that warns your bones before your brain even catches up. "Yo, new girl." The voice cracked through the noise like a whip. Blake Turner, captain of the baseball team, the kind of boy who believed the world bent for his last name, stepped into her path. Behind him were Dylan Reed, Casey Mott, and Brooke West, the pack that ruled Westbridge. Blake's smile was the kind that never reached his eyes. He held a bat in one hand, spinning it slowly. "What's in the bag, Lena? Rocks? Or you smuggling bricks to throw at us?" Laughter, cheap, cruel echoing, the kind that makes your stomach fold in on itself. Lena stepped back, but her shoulders hit the lockers. The circle of students tightened around her. Phones came up. Red lights blinked. Live stream started. Entertainment had begun. Brooke grinned. "Come on, guys, this'll go viral." Dylan banged the bat against the lockers. Clang. 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 Each hit made Lena flinch. Each flinch made them laugh harder. She tried to bend down to pick up her scattered books, but Blake kicked one across the floor. "Nah, stay down. You don't get to walk through my hallway like you own it." A teacher appeared at the far end. "Ms. Lang, math department." She froze. Her eyes darted between Blake and Lena, then to the glowing phone screens around them. Her lips parted, then pressed shut. And just like that, she turned away. The silence of an adult can be louder than any scream. Lena swallowed hard. "Please, I just want to go to class." Blake smirked. "You want to pass? Then you pay the toll." He lifted the bat. The crowd gasped. No one moved. The air thickened. The hallway turned into a courtroom with one judge, Blake, and one sentence. The bat came down, and in a flash of wood and bone and screams, Westbridge High stopped pretending it was a safe place. The ambulance lights painted the night red and blue as they tore into St. Helena General Hospital. Inside, Lena's body lay still, small, fragile, her temple bruised dark violet. "Severe head trauma," a nurse shouted. "Pulse weak, keep oxygen steady." Dr. Yates, his white coat streaked with coffee stains, rushed in, eyes sharp with focus. He didn't need to ask what happened. He'd seen enough teenage victims to recognize when violence wore the mask of an accident. "Move her to CT, now," he barked. The monitors beeped, faint but steady. Each sound felt like a countdown between life and death. And then something quiet but sinister entered the room. A voice over the phone, calm and commanding. "This is from administration. Change the report." "Write it as a fall," the nurse froze. "Sir, but no debate. Just do it." Dr. Yates glanced at the nurse, his jaw tight. He didn't need to ask who the voice belonged to. Everyone in town knew the Turner family had friends in high places. By midnight, the report read, "Concussion due to accidental fall." The truth had been erased by one line of text. The next morning, the heavy hospital doors opened and a woman walked in. Her boots echoed down the hallway like gunfire. Her name was Rosa Harris, Lena's mother. Her face was pale with exhaustion, her eyes swollen from crying. But when she looked at her daughter lying unconscious beneath the bright, cold light, the grief turned into something else, something burning. Rosa had been a military investigator before life pulled her into quieter battles. But now, looking at her daughter's broken body, every part of that soldier came roaring back to life. She turned to Dr. Yates. "Tell me everything." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "The file says fall, but those wounds—" Rosa cut him off. "Not a fall. A weapon." She flipped open the report herself, her eyes scanning the words. When she reached the phrase accidental fall, her lips trembled with fury. Who wrote this lie? A hospital official stepped in, the type who smiles too much when he's hiding something. Mrs. Harris, he said smoothly, I understand your grief, but let's not create unnecessary drama. These cases are sensitive. Sometimes the best thing for everyone is discretion. Discretion. Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper, more dangerous than a scream. My daughter is in a coma. Your discretion is the reason she's here. The man's smile faltered. The Turner Foundation has done a lot for this hospital, and now they'll pay for it, Rosa said coldly. Her next move was instinct. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. Captain Mason Rudd, once her trainee, now head of the local school safety division. Mason, she said, her voice steady as a blade. It's Rosa, you owe me. And I need the truth. There was silence on the line, then a slow exhale. Rosa, what did they do? Everything, she said, and I'm going to burn it all down. By dawn, Rosa walked into Westbridge High, escorted by Mason. Principal Janet Price sat behind her polished desk, every move rehearsed, her smile brittle. Beside her stood Vice Principal Hal Carter, his hands clasped like a loyal guard dog. What can I do for you, Mrs. Harris? Price asked. Rosa didn't waste words. I want the footage from Hallway C the moment my daughter was attacked. Hal coughed. Those cameras were under maintenance. Of course they were. Rosa's tone cut like glass. Price slid a folder across the desk. This is the official report. It was an unfortunate fall. We're deeply saddened. Rosa didn't touch the folder. You call fractured ribs and a skull bruise unfortunate? Mrs. Harris, Price said, keeping her calm. Without video evidence, there's no proof of violence. Let's not start rumors that could damage the school's reputation. Rosa leaned forward. Your reputation died the moment my child did. Hal took a nervous step back. Price tried to smile again, but her lips twitched. Rosa stood. If you think deleting footage will save you, you're mistaken. Every system has a backup, and I'll find yours. As she left, Mason caught her arm gently. Rosa, this could cost you everything, she turned to him. Then it's worth everything. Rosa didn't go home that night. She went straight to the computer lab. There, sitting among humming machines, was Mrs. Patel, the IT teacher, sharp, kind-eyed, and trusted by students more than any administrator. I need your help, Rosa said simply. Patel glanced at her, understanding flashing in her eyes. Tell me what you need. Rosa leaned closer. Find me every backup, every deleted file, every student video connected to the attack. Mrs. Patel nodded. Calling 3 students from the media club, Naomi, Jaden, and Luis. Work quietly, she said. And fast. Naomi began typing, her fingers flying over the keys. Someone's been deleting everything, she said, frowning. Not random deletion. These takedown notices came from a corporate IP. Wait, this is from the County Education Board server. Jaden leaned in. And guess who's on that board? Thomas Turner, Blake's father. The room went silent. Rosa exhaled slowly. So the cover-up goes higher. Mrs. Patel printed the IP logs, sliding the papers toward Rosa. Keep these safe, she said. They'll try to erase them again. Rosa folded them carefully and tucked them into her coat. They can erase data, but they can't erase what's coming, Naomi whispered. What are you going to do? Rosa's eyes were like fire. I'm going to make them remember her name. Rosa didn't sleep for 2 days. Every minute that passed felt like sand slipping through her fists, and each grain was a truth someone was trying to bury. The logs from the computer lab, the IP addresses, the midnight deletions, all pointed to one place. The Crestfield County Board of Education, the very office that was supposed to protect students like her daughter. That morning, she walked straight through the glass doors of the building, carrying a folder thicker than a court brief. Inside, the board sat in polished silence, their suits neat, their smiles expensive. At the center of the table sat Thomas Turner, father of the boy who'd left Lena broken. He leaned back in his chair, looking like a man who believed he owned the room. Rosa placed her folder on the table with a quiet thud that made everyone look up. I'm here for the truth, she said, voice calm but edged with fire. And I'm not leaving without it. Thomas gave a thin smile. Mrs. Harris, I'm sorry for what happened to your daughter, truly. But spreading unfounded rumors about my son in this school system won't help anyone. Unfounded? She asked softly. Then why are all the school videos deleted from your office server? Whispers rippled around the table. One of the younger board members coughed, glancing nervously toward Thomas. Rosa slid a printed IP log across the table. This account right here filed dozens of takedown claims overnight, all under your jurisdiction. Thomas's smile faltered. Coincidence, he said. Anyone can fake those. Before he could say more, the door opened. A woman in a dark blazer entered. Attorney Dana Holt, sharp, relentless, already well known for making corrupt officials sweat. She dropped a document on the table beside Rosa. This, Dana said clearly, is a temporary order from Crestfield District Court. From this moment forward, any deletion or modification of school or board data will be treated as obstruction of justice. The room broke into low chaos. Chairs shifted. Voices rose. Thomas's face tightened, but his tone remained silky. You're making a very big mistake, Ms. Holt. My foundation funds half the programs in this county. And that's exactly the problem, Rosa replied. You thought your money could buy silence. It can't buy me. The meeting ended with no resolution, only the sound of Thomas whispering into his phone as they left, his face pale. Rosa didn't know who he was calling, but she knew one thing. He was planning something. That night, the hospital hallways were too quiet. Nurse Jenna was on duty, her hands shaking as she stacked files. When Rosa approached, Jenna froze. Mrs. Harris, she whispered, they told us not to speak to you. Then whisper the truth, Rosa said. Who told you to change the report? The older hospital administrator in the corner coughed loudly. This conversation is over, he snapped. But Rosa didn't even glance at him. She stepped closer to Jenna, her voice steady. You called Dr. Yates the night it happened, didn't you? You said someone wanted the record changed. Jenna's eyes filled with tears. It was an email. From a law firm that represents the Turner Foundation. They said if I didn't update it, I'd lose my job. The administrator slammed his hand on the desk. Enough! Rosa turned her head slowly, eyes hard as iron. Sit down before you make things worse for yourself. Silence fell heavy as dust. Jenna pulled a small envelope from her drawer and handed it to Rosa. Inside was a printed version of the original report. Head trauma from blunt force. Not a fall. Not an accident. The truth, nearly erased. There's more, Jenna said in a trembling voice. Dr. Yates. He uses a digital stethoscope that records sound automatically. That night he forgot to turn it off. It might have captured the call. Rosa's pulse quickened. You mean the call where they ordered him to rewrite the file? Jenna nodded. I didn't listen to it. But it's still in the memory. Before Rosa could answer, the administrator lunged forward, trying to snatch the envelope from her hand. Rosa twisted away, shoving him back so hard he stumbled into a cabinet. You touch me again, she said quietly, and tomorrow you'll be explaining to a judge why you interfered with a federal order. The man froze. Rosa turned back to Jenna. You did the right thing, she said. From now on, you're not alone. Outside, the cold air bit at her face as she dialed Dana. We have it, she said. A recording and a signed report. That's enough to open a criminal inquiry, Dana replied. Bring it in the morning. Rosa hung up and looked up at the hospital windows glowing against the dark sky. They thought the truth was buried, she whispered. It's alive. The next day at Westbridge High, she marched straight to the equipment storage room with Mason and 2 officers. The air inside smelled of dust and old leather. Rows of bats and gloves lined the walls. Coach Rick Dalton crossed his arms as they entered, his face a mix of annoyance and fear. I already told you, he said. The bat went missing. Rosa's eyes swept the room. Funny thing about lies, Coach. They always leave a shadow. Mason walked to the corner and pointed up. There's a secondary camera up there, Coach, maintenance camera. Still running? Dalton hesitated. No. I mean, it was broken. Mason connected his tablet. A video played. A boy sneaking in at night, pulling a bat from a shelf, handing it to someone waiting by the door. The camera caught his face clearly. Vice Principal Hal Carter. Rosa's voice was almost gentle. So that's where it went. Coach Dalton's face went pale. I was told to keep quiet. They said it was a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, Rosa repeated softly, is what cowards call complicity. She turned and walked out, dialing her phone. Naomi, she said, meet me in hallway C in 15 minutes. Bring the club projector. At lunch, the corridor filled with students. Word spread like wildfire. Rosa Harris was there. Hal Carter tried to slip through the crowd, but Rosa's voice stopped him cold. "Mr. Carter, tell me, who opened the equipment room at 10:43 p.m.? The crowd went silent. Dozens of phones pointed at them. Carter stammered, I don't know what you're talking about." Naomi's voice came from behind. "Then maybe this will refresh your memory." The projector flickered on, showing the footage, Carter's face clear as daylight handing off the bat. The hallway erupted, shouts, gasps, students filming everything. Carter backed away, sweating. "It wasn't my idea. The principal told me to do it. She said the bat belonged to the Turner Foundation." Rosa didn't smile. She simply turned to the crowd. "You heard him. The truth doesn't hide, it's forced underground by fear. But fear dies when people stand together." The chant began slowly, then grew until the hall shook. "Justice for Lena. Justice for Lena." By nightfall, the story had spread beyond Crestfield. News outlets flooded the school gates. Principal Price called an emergency assembly, determined to regain control. The auditorium overflowed. Parents, reporters, students, every seat full. Price took the microphone. "The rumors are damaging," she said, voice shaking. "There is no proof of violence." Rosa stood up from the audience. "No proof? My daughter is in a coma. Your vice principal just confessed." Dana walked up beside her and laid 4 documents on the podium. IP logs tracing deletion orders to the board. Email from the Turner law firm ordering the hospital to alter medical records. Camera footage showing the weapon being removed. "And Carter's public confession." The room buzzed. Price laughed nervously. "Those could be edited, doctored." Before she finished, the screen behind her came alive again. The restored hallway video played in full. Blake Turner, bat raised. The swing. The screams, the crowd went silent. Then a single parent stood up, shouting, "You called that a fall?" The hall erupted. Students cried. Parents yelled. Reporters filmed everything. Thomas Turner tried to pull the plug on the projector, but it was too late. Hundreds of phones had already recorded it. The footage spread online before he reached the stage. Justice for Lena trended before the meeting even ended. Rosa looked straight at him as he backed away, his face drained. "You can turn off the screen," she said, "but you can't turn off the truth." That night, Thomas Turner made another phone call, his voice trembling with anger. "Plan C," he said. "Erase everything, hospital, school, all of it." But the storm he unleashed was no longer something he could control. Rosa had become what every corrupt man fears, a mother with nothing left to lose. The next morning, Crestfield woke up to chaos. The police cars outside Westbridge High weren't there for a drill. Reporters crowded the sidewalks and students huddled in disbelief as word spread. The district attorney had launched an investigation. Inside the hospital, Rosa sat beside Lena, her daughter still motionless beneath the soft pulse of monitors. She hadn't slept in days, yet her eyes burned with purpose. Dr. Yates entered holding a thin file. "We found traces of paint on the bat," he said. "Locker paint orange. Matches the exact spot where her head struck." Rosa exhaled, her fingers tightening around Lena's hand. "Then it's over," she whispered. "Not yet," Yates replied softly. "But this will matter." Later that day, Mason arrived, his badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. "The county's approving a warrant," he said, "for the school's server and the Turner Foundation office. Donna's already in court arguing it." Hours later, the small courtroom was packed, reporters lining the back, flashes cutting through the dim space. Judge Morales adjusted her glasses as Dana spoke. "Your Honor, we request full access to all digital records, internal emails, video files, correspondence, every line of code tied to the cover-up." Across the aisle, the Turner's attorney, Mr. Briggs, rose with a thin smile. "This is an outrageous invasion. The Turner Foundation funds half the district." The judge cut him off sharply. "And that's exactly why this hearing exists. Funding doesn't buy immunity." Dana laid the evidence before her, the IP logs, the deleted footage trail, the hospital's altered report, and the confession from Hal Carter. The silence stretched. Morales picked up her pen, signed, and said, "Search warrant approved." A wave of relief passed through the courtroom like wind through dry leaves. Rosa closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "They can't hide anymore." That evening, the police swept through the school. Files were seized, emails backed up, hard drives locked in evidence bags. On one of them, they found an audio clip. Dr. Yates's stethoscope recording. A male voice said coldly, "Write it as a fall. It's already been arranged." It was unmistakable Thomas Turner. The leak hit the internet within hours. The town exploded. Protesters filled the streets with handmade signs. Parents demanded resignations. No more silence. Justice for Lena. At the next board meeting, the tension was electric. Rosa sat in the front row with Dana beside her. On the opposite side, Principal Price, Vice Principal Carter, and Coach Dalton waited pale and sweating. The chairman struck the gavel. "We are here to vote on the disciplinary measures following the Crestfield investigation." Dana stood, her voice firm and clear. "Evidence shows administrative conspiracy, destruction of records, and obstruction of justice. We ask for the immediate suspension of all involved." Price rose suddenly. "You can't destroy years of service over one mistake. I protected this school." Hal Carter slammed his palm on the table. "You protected yourself. You told me to hide that bat, Janet. You said Whitaker would handle the fallout." The room erupted in shouting. Cameras flashed. Students watching online cheered when the chairman called for order. "The board finds Principal Price unfit for duty. Effective immediately. She is suspended pending criminal investigation." Price tried to speak, but security escorted her out as parents clapped and shouted, "Justice for Lena!" Within hours, charges followed: obstruction, tampering, and cover-up. The Turners' empire started cracking under the weight of the truth. Weeks later, the trial began. The courtroom was overflowing. Blake Turner sat in a suit too large for his shoulders, his jaw tight. Rosa sat across the aisle, silent, unflinching. The prosecutor played the restored footage on a large screen. The sound of that single swing echoed through the courtroom. Then came the stethoscope recording. Thomas Turner's voice filled the air again. "Change the record." Blake dropped his head, whispering to his lawyer. Finally, in a moment that stunned everyone, he spoke. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," he said. "Coach Dalton said they'd clean it up. Dad said it'd be fine." The courtroom gasped. Dana leaned forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "So you're saying the adults told you to stay quiet after you nearly killed a girl?" Blake nodded, tears streaking his face. Thomas Turner stood, shouting, "That's enough." But the judge's gavel silenced him. "Sit down, Mr. Turner, you'll have your turn." By the end of the trial, the verdicts were read one by one. Blake Turner, guilty of aggravated assault and obstruction, 12 years imprisonment. Principal Janet Price, guilty of abuse of office and falsifying records, 8 years. Coach Dalton, guilty of concealing evidence, sentenced to probation and barred from education for life. Thomas Turner, charged with corruption and interference with justice pending federal investigation. Outside, hundreds waited in the rain. When Rosa stepped out, applause broke through the storm. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to smile. Back at St. Helena Hospital, Lena's eyelids fluttered. The nurses froze, then rushed to her bedside. Her mother leaned in, heart pounding. "Baby," Lena's lips moved weakly. "Mom?" Rosa's knees nearly gave out. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe." Lena blinked, tears sliding down her temple. "I heard someone say, 'Go live,' before it went dark. It was Brooke." Rosa nodded, her throat tight. "Then she'll tell her truth, too." Within days, Brooke was called to testify. Her statement confirmed everything. Blake's swing, the cover-up orders, the threats to stay quiet. The case was sealed beyond denial. Months passed. Lena learned to walk again. Her hair grew back where the scar ran like a silver line. The old hallway at Westbridge High was renovated. New tiles, new lighting. A plaque that read, "The Lena Harris Wing. Truth Never Falls." The media club, once a quiet afterthought, became the Transparency Group run by Naomi, Jaden, and Luis. Every incident in the school was now reported, recorded, and publicly logged. Students no longer walked the halls afraid. A year later, Rosa stood before a crowd of parents, teachers, and students at the opening of the Crestfield Student Protection Center. She was no longer just a mother. She had become the district's chief advisor for school safety reform. Her speech was simple. "We thought we were saving one girl, but we rebuilt a system. You can't silence justice forever. It always finds a voice." Lena stood beside her, smiling, alive, her arm looped around her mother's. The applause that followed wasn't just for survival. It was for every child who'd been told to stay quiet. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops of Crestfield, Rosa looked out over the crowd and said softly, "They thought hurting my daughter would end her story. But it only began mine, and somewhere in that same hallway where everything started, a new generation of students walked past the plaque without fear, whispering the words engraved beneath it. Truth may fall, but it never stays down." 2 years passed, and Crestfield no longer looked like the same town. The faces had changed, but the memory of what happened to Lena Harris still lingered like a scar that never fully healed. People still paused when they walked past Westbridge High's front gate, where a new marble sign gleamed under the sunlight. The Lena Initiative, justice for one, safety for all. Inside, students hurried between classes, teachers smiled more easily, and cameras hung discreetly in every hallway, not as a threat but as protection. It was a new world born from pain. Yet for Rosa Harris, peace was something she hadn't quite learned to trust. That morning, she sat in a courthouse again. Not for her daughter this time, but because Thomas Turner had returned with a new war. The Turner Foundation had filed a lawsuit: defamation, loss of reputation, emotional damages. They claimed Rosa's campaign had ruined their legacy. Rosa looked across the courtroom at Thomas. The same man who once controlled every official in town now looked older, worn, his arrogance cracked. He had new lawyers this time, slick, suited, confident. They promised to rebuild his empire by tearing down hers. When the judge entered, silence fell. Attorney Dana Holt, now district prosecutor, stood beside Rosa again. "They'll use every trick," Dana whispered. "Stay calm. We've beaten worse." Thomas's lawyer started with charm. "Your Honor, my client has suffered irreversible damage. The Turners gave millions to education, health, and youth programs. Yet Mrs. Harris and her associates waged a campaign that destroyed that goodwill. All based on emotionally driven misinformation." Rosa didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor until it was Dana's turn. "Misinformation?" she said, her voice steady. "You mean the hospital recordings, the deleted files, the destroyed evidence?" "We didn't create that, sir. Your client did," the lawyer smirked. "You can't prove intent from 2-year-old files." Dana lifted a flash drive. "We don't need old files." The forensics team traced encrypted backups hidden in the Turner Foundation's archives. Same directives, same orders, identical to those used to suppress the original assault video. The judge leaned forward. "Are you telling me the Foundation continued to tamper with public records after the conviction?" "Yes, Your Honor," Dana said. "They tried to rewrite history. Again." A ripple spread through the courtroom. Thomas's hand trembled slightly as his lawyer whispered urgently to him. Rosa finally lifted her gaze. "You wanted a war," she said softly. "Now you have one with the truth." Outside, news cameras waited. The second trial trended by nightfall. But this time the story was bigger. It wasn't about a single attack anymore. It was about power, control, and whether justice could survive even after victory. For days, testimony after testimony stripped away the facade Thomas had built. Financial documents revealed secret payouts to school officials. Emails showed board members receiving donations after suppressing evidence. And the final blow came when Brooke West, once part of Blake's clique, testified again. Her voice shook, but she didn't waver. "Mr. Turner told us to keep quiet. He said if we admitted anything, our families would suffer. I was 15. I believed him." The courtroom went silent. Rosa's hands trembled, but not from anger this time. From something heavier, older, pity. The verdict came quickly. The Turner Foundation's lawsuit was dismissed, its assets frozen pending state investigation. The empire that once owned the town was gone. Thomas Turner was led away in handcuffs for perjury and obstruction. After the ruling, Rosa stepped outside. The press swarmed her, microphones flashing like fireflies. One reporter shouted, "Mrs. Harris, how does it feel to win again?" Rosa paused. "This isn't a win," she said quietly. "It's a beginning." That evening, she drove through Crestfield with the windows down. The town glowed differently now. Murals on old walls, slogans painted by students. Speak, don't hide. Courage is contagious. Protect each other. At home, Lena sat at the kitchen table surrounded by college brochures. Her hair brushed her shoulders again, her face fuller, stronger. She looked up with a smile that melted years of weight. "Mom, guess what? I got accepted to Easton University. They offered a full scholarship under the Lena Initiative Fund." Rosa blinked back tears. "That's you, baby." "That's all you?" Lena shook her head. It's us. The months that followed turned their family's story into something larger. The state legislature adopted Rosa's 12-point plan as the School Integrity Act. Districts across the country began reaching out for guidance. Every school that joined received a simple bronze plaque engraved with her daughter's words. If you see it, say it. Silence is surrender. By the 3rd anniversary of the attack, Westbridge High held a memorial assembly. The auditorium overflowed with parents, teachers, alumni, even reporters from other states. Lena walked onto the stage, her cane tapping softly. She wore no fear now. When I first woke up in that hospital, she said, I thought everything was broken, my body, my school, my faith in people. But my mom taught me something. Broken things can build better futures if we don't throw them away. We rebuild them stronger. The crowd rose in applause. Mason stood in the back, his police cap over his heart. Naomi, Jaden, and Luis recorded every moment for the school archive. When the room quieted, Rosa joined her daughter at the podium. We built this because we stopped waiting for permission, she said. Every child deserves to walk into school and know, if something happens, the truth will be protected, not buried. The applause lasted for minutes. Students cheered. Parents wept. Somewhere in the back, Dr. Yates smiled through tired eyes. After the ceremony, as the crowd spilled out into the afternoon light, Lena lingered by the hallway where it all began. The lockers had been repainted. The dents were gone, but she traced her fingers along the cool metal and whispered, We made it. Rosa came up behind her. You sure did. They stood there quietly, the hum of voices echoing behind them. Lena looked at her mother. You know what I think? What? I think they never understood what they started. They tried to destroy one voice, but all they did was teach everyone else how to speak. Rosa smiled, eyes glistening. Then keep them talking, sweetheart. Forever. As they walked out together, the afternoon sun poured through the tall glass windows, painting the floor in gold. Outside, banners fluttered with new words in bold black letters. Truth may fall, but it never stays down. And somewhere beyond the crowd, a little girl walking into her first day at Westbridge High looked up at that banner and smiled, never realizing she was stepping into a school built on one mother's unbreakable promise, to make sure no child ever faced the silence again. That night, rain washed over Crestfield like the town was cleansing itself of its old ghosts. Thunder rolled in the distance, but Rosa Harris didn't flinch. She stood by her living room window, staring out at the streetlights shimmering on wet pavement. Every fight, every courtroom, every sleepless night had led to this quiet, yet the quiet felt uneasy. Her phone buzzed. Dana's name flashed on the screen. They're coming for you again, Dana said immediately. Federal investigators uncovered a list of private contractors Turner hired years ago. They think he didn't act alone. There's someone higher, someone who funded the cover-ups across multiple districts. Rosa's chest tightened. You mean this was never just Crestfield? No, Dana said. It's bigger. Much bigger. They're calling it the Grayfield Network. Principals, lawyers, even district auditors. Paid to hide student violence cases to protect donor families. Rosa pressed her palm against the window, and they thought we'd stop at one case. They underestimated you, Dana said quietly. By dawn, Rosa was back at the courthouse. The FBI had arrived to serve federal subpoenas. Mason met her on the steps, files tucked under his arm. They're raiding 6 offices across 3 states, he said. Turns out the same law firm that ordered Lena's file changed also handled 30 similar cases. Rosa took the papers, scanning the names. So many towns, so many children. How long has this been happening? Long enough for them to believe no one would ever look, Mason replied. Until you made them. Inside the courthouse, the hearing was chaos. Lawyers shouted, reporters scrambled for sound bites, and Thomas Turner's name was replaced with others, superintendents, attorneys, politicians. The corruption ran deep, tangled like old roots in poisoned soil. When it was Rosa's turn to speak, she stood before the committee, calm and steady. You built a machine, she said, her voice echoing. You used your power to decide which children deserve protection and which could be sacrificed for funding. But you forgot something important. A lie can live for years, but it can't survive when a single person refuses to stop saying the truth out loud. One of the officials leaned forward, his tone brittle. And what do you suggest we do, Mrs. Harris? You want us to rebuild every system? Rosa looked him in the eye. Not rebuild, redefine. You don't fix rot by painting over it. You tear it out. The hearing room erupted in applause. Even some of the officials couldn't hide their emotion. Cameras caught her face, wet with rain, unwavering. That image flooded headlines by evening. Across the country, other parents began speaking up. Students in neighboring states organized walkouts holding hand-painted signs that read, "Truth never falls." Hashtags multiplied. News anchors called it the second wave. Meanwhile, Lena was halfway through her first semester at Easton University. She watched her mother on TV, tears in her eyes, pride and pain mixing into something unshakable. Her phone buzzed nonstop, students from other schools messaging her, saying, "Your story gave us courage." Late one night, she sat in her dorm and opened her laptop to draft a speech for an upcoming conference. Her first line read, "Silence is not safety." Back in Crestfield, Rosa stood outside Westbridge High during the annual remembrance event. The air smelled like rain again, just as it had the day Lena fell. She traced her fingers over the marble plaque, whispering, "It's never over, is it?" Behind her, Mason's voice broke the stillness. "No, but that's the point. Justice isn't a destination. It's a patrol." They walked together through the courtyard, past the new students laughing by the fountain, oblivious to the ghosts that once filled these hallways with screams. Rosa smiled faintly. That's what I wanted, to make them forget the fear, not the lesson. Later that evening, her phone buzzed again. A new email, U.S. Department of Education official recognition ceremony. The Amara Initiative, now renamed the Harris Protocol, was to be adopted as a national framework for student safety. She stared at the screen until her eyes blurred. Then she closed it, wiped her face, and whispered, "Lena, we did it." A week later, Washington, D.C. was bathed in morning gold as Rosa walked up the marble steps of the Capitol building. Inside, senators, educators, and parents filled the chamber. When the ceremony began, the Secretary of Education took the stage. "Tonight," he said, "we honor a mother who turned grief into reform, who refused to let silence become the language of our schools. Mrs. Rosa Harris, please come forward." As she accepted the plaque, flashbulbs flickered, but Rosa's eyes weren't on the cameras. They were on her daughter, sitting in the front row, smiling through tears. Rosa stepped to the microphone. "I used to think justice was about punishment, but it's not. Justice is about rebuilding trust in people, in systems, in truth. And sometimes it takes losing everything to teach a nation how to listen again." The applause rose, a wave that filled the hall. Outside, as the crowd dispersed, Rosa and Lena stood together on the steps. "The city glowing around them, you know," Lena said quietly. "You never stopped fighting. Even when it wasn't just for me anymore." Rosa turned to her, her voice soft. "Because every child is mine now." They watched as the wind picked up the flags along the avenue. The same words printed across them. The Harris Protocol. Truth is a right, not a privilege. And somewhere far away, in another small town, in another quiet school, a teacher caught a student being bullied and didn't look away. She remembered the story of Crestfield. She remembered a mother who refused to be silent. That was how Rosa's war ended, not with fire but with vigilance. The system didn't crumble overnight, but it finally began to change. And as the sun sank behind the city skyline, Rosa Harris walked down those Capitol steps with her daughter beside her, her voice steady as the world listened. "They thought silence would win," she said, smiling faintly. "But silence never wins.